2020 marked a turning point, a realization that the world as it was wasn't working for most people. Biden was elected and began working overtime to dismantle the social safety net that had expanded in 2020.
What are you talking about? He expanded social safety nets through COVID.
Immediately after taking office, Biden falsely declared the pandemic over.
This is the end of 2022. COVID was, for the most part, over.
Forget 2020. It's back to work, now with even fewer health protections and no meaningful treatments for the brand new, highly transmissible airborne virus.
Right now, she's doing vaccine denial.
About a quarter of U.S. citizens agreed that Americans, quote, may have to resort to violence in order to save our country.
I love this video so far because it's sitting here talking about how people feel like they need to move closer to political violence, and not a single time has she pinned any of this on Trump. All right, guys, I'm pretty curious about this one. This looks interesting. It's a little different. It's called Somebody Needs to Do It from Taylor Lorenz. Not a huge fan of her, but it is what it is. I think it's about people calling for the takedown of Donald Trump. That's what this is. And so I'm curious. Let's watch it.
Thousands and thousands of people are making the same plea.
Yo, can somebody just do it? Can somebody, anybody,
just put a girl on?
Just do it.
Somebody's got to do it. There has to be somebody out there that is willing to do it.
Wow.
Who's going to take the initiative to do it? We all know what needs to be done. And some
Jesus, that's crazy. Here's my thing, man. It doesn't need to be done. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. If our current president passed naturally, like the beautiful angel he is, I wouldn't be upset, and we might benefit from different leadership. But I would never call upon violence. And if you felt the same way about Joe Biden, if you're like, hey, if Biden peacefully passed away, wrong way. Biden peacefully passed away, I think it would be better. That's fine. But for somebody to take him out, that's terrible. And that'll be very bad for the country, obviously. Like somebody taking out Trump, that's fucking wild. All right, that would obviously lead to a lot of divisiveness, and then people would go absolutely batshit crazy. So nobody needs to take anybody out. We just gotta suffer through it. I think it's okay to struggle a little bit. And hopefully we come out the other side going all right. So far, I think I slowly see people kind of healing and being like a little less crazy now that Trump got elected. You guys got what you wanted. I think a lot of people realized that he wasn't the God, Savior, Messiah that we all thought. And now it is we are where we are.
somebody needs to do it.
If someone does it before the summertime, it's going to be like that one summer when everyone was playing Pokemon Go and everyone was a friend.
Gotta do it.
Pokemon Go to the polls? Is that what you said?
For the good of everybody.
Do it, please.
Oh my goodness.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Every minute counts. I'm not saying somebody should. Nobody should.
Okay. It's just kind of weird that this is... I don't know. I feel like it's a little too brazen. It's a little too much for me. It's a little too crazy. A little too violence-driven.
100% dare you to name one thing that you hope happens in 2025.
I hope I make a lot of money, more money than I'm making now. That's the one crazy thing I hope happens. This is so weird. I'm uncomfortable. Not because he's black. I'm just uncomfortable. Sorry. That's not what... Okay.
On X, TikTok, Instagram, and in comment sections all over, people are begging, pleading for someone out there to just do it. In these pleas, the subject is never stated.
I think that's a Shia LaBeouf reference.
The action... Someone
needs to do it right now. How popular are they? I've never seen any of these TikToks. Although this one has 5.8 million views. But this one has no... She's not showing the views, so I'm assuming that it's probably not very popular.
Is never spelled out, but somehow we all know exactly what's being said.
True.
But in case you are somehow still in the dark, these memes are about unaliving Trump. And sorry to say it in very dumb algos.
Just say like assassinating Trump. Obviously, it's bad to assassinate Trump. All right, that's ridiculous to assassinate anybody. But just like say that. Just be like, hey, it's about assassinating somebody, unaliving. I don't know. I just feel like sometimes language gets like a little immature, and it just bothers me. I mean, I guess I kind of I hate. You know what? I really bothers the fuck out of me is when people will be like, "Oh, I was graped." Are you a smoothie? Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, I understand that there's got to be censorship. It's just so immature. Somebody graped me. With the banana? You know what I mean? Like what is like I just feel like we gotta grow up a little bit. We gotta grow up a little bit as like a country. You know? We can't be saying graped. We can't be saying SA. I don't know. That's maybe that's just me.
Speak terms, but I don't want this video to get taken down from YouTube. What we're witnessing,
I don't think it would. If you're saying like, hey, people are saying that they want to assassinate Trump, like that's not going to get you taken off of YouTube. Like obviously that's an appalling thing to ever happen. That should never happen. As long as you're not advocating for it and you're like vehemently disagreeing with that happening, I'm pretty sure you're fine on YouTube. So
witnessing is not just an absurd or ironic online trend. It's something much, much deeper. We are living in a...
I like that the only criticism I have in my comments isn't about the insensitive remark I made. It's about the fact that who would put grapes in a smoothie. It's incredible. You guys are top tier. I love you guys.
Political tinderbox. Trump is back in power, enacting policies that undermine civil liberties, environmental protections, and our economy.
That is true. Those things are all true.
Elon Musk...
You guys see Elon Musk getting like really upset and talking about... He's like, I'm not going to spend as much money on politics anymore. He realizes that he looked like an idiot.
is gutting the federal government while billionaires rob us blind.
True. They're proposing like tax, like cuts for like Medicare and Medicaid and, tax cuts for billionaires. So like we're definitely winning, right, guys? It's crazy.
Institutions that were built to serve as guardrails are bending and breaking, while Democrats are not even symbolically resisting.
Well, they are resistant. What are you talking about? What?
The courts are caving, the press is depleted, and the idea of...
Maybe that is level of truth to that. Like, I think even Bernie Sanders did like a pretty, I think, solid job with, Trump, I think he signed an executive order that was like, hey, guys, lower those prices, drug companies, but with no actual enforcement metric. And so Bernie Sanders was like, oh, great idea. And then he proposed he proposed an actual enforcement metric that just agrees with Trump, because this is a good idea to try to cut down on pricing. I think it's just kind of funny.
Of accountability feels like a joke. Dissent is being criminalized, speech is being surveilled, and legal U.S. residents are literally being deported for thought crimes. These memes are symbols of a society teetering on the edge. Memes have always reflected cultural moods, but these posts are about something more than that. They tap into this belief that the system is beyond repair and that nothing short of a seismic, violent shift will change the direction that we're heading in.
I mean, listen, sometimes there might be a level of truth to that, unfortunately. I don't think we've quite hit the point where we need to have a violent revolution. I think that a lot of the people that are complaining about how Trump bad is were a lot of individuals who maybe weren't really super active in voting in the first place. There's a lot of, like, listen, we have the numbers to get like Democrats elected forever, but young people don't vote. They don't like to vote. They don't care to vote. They don't think voting is necessary. I would say that, you guys will go online and meme about how we need to have a violent revolution, but you won't get out of your house for an hour and go vote. Not even just federally, like local elections. Go vote on your local school board. Go vote on midterm elections. Go vote on your congressman, your house, you know what I mean? Like for all your representatives, your local electives. Get out of the house. Go vote. So you guys will cosplay as like we're gonna fucking rule the world, revolutionary, powerful individuals, but you guys can't even like get out of the house and like canvass or something or fucking cast a ballot. You know what I mean? You're I don't think you guys are gonna do the revolution. I don't think you guys have it in yet.
In this video, I'm going to attempt to dissect this belief and unpack exactly what led us here. I'm not going to get into whether these memes and posts are moral, legal, or even advisable, but what I want you to understand is where these memes are coming from and what they say about
a computer.
The cultural and political moment that we're currently living in. Because these memes are not just about unaliving Trump. They are about collective trauma, political cynicism, our
collective trauma, maybe. I don't
decaying
know.
faith in democratic institutions, and so much more. To start,
I think it's really mostly just about people getting social credits for saying a thing. I think that's it.
I want to talk about exactly how and when millions of people lost faith in the system. This was not an overnight phenomenon.
I think that it's going to be September 11th, right? Like that's really the time where we lost faith in the system. I mean, we've already had 24-hour news cycles since I think the 1980s, but they really got popularized with 9/11. That's where it all comes from. 9/11 popularized the 24-hour news cycle, constant blasts and beams of information going into your brain. I feel like the news went from reporting on what's going on with a potential slight bias to working in tandem with whatever political party they felt was better. pushing out information that's sensationalized constantly. 9/11 happened. That was crazy. And then after 9/11's over, they're like, okay, well, we need to capture that crazy energy. All of a sudden, you have tons of speculation, tons of instantaneous news that are full of like holes and defects. People are getting really riled up. They got all this information beaming into their face, and we got a lot of like divisiveness and like a lot of negative energy. And then you just constantly see like, come. It's not. I feel like that's where the political decline really started. When you had that's where it started, because you get. The media organizations will overly support like political institutions. And I think this is an inevitability of a two-party system, just to be absolutely clear. And so, to me, what you would do is you'd move to a more-party system, a three, and you would do that by ranked choice voting. Instead of voting for who you want to win, you rank the, let's say top 3 or top 5 people that are running. I think that would be a much more productive system.
There were pivotal events over the past few years that pushed people to this moment. And I don't think that you can look at the "someone should do it" memes without examining the major cultural and political turning points that we've recently lived through. To begin with, we have to go back to March 2020 when COVID hit. And before you tune out, because
that was crazy. Dude, I really remember I had this place. It's called Flaming Grill Buffet. It was an Asian buffet. It was my favorite fucking buffet. And I remember COVID hitting and my birthday was coming up, and I'm like, it'll be open in 3 weeks. It'll be open in 3 weeks. It never opened up again. It's so sad. That's my COVID drama.
I said the word COVID, listen to me. The year 2020 is actually a time in history that the entire US government, the mainstream media, and pretty much everyone in power has spent billions and billions of dollars waging a massive propaganda war to try to make you forget.
What? What did you talk about?
And that propaganda campaign has worked on a lot of...
I'm very confused what she's saying. What?
...when COVID hit. And before you tune out, recently lived through. To begin with, we have to go back to March 2020 is actually a time in history that the entire US government, the mainstream media, and pretty much everyone in power has spent billions and billions of dollars waging a massive propaganda war to try to make you forget.
Forget what? What?
And that propaganda campaign has worked on a lot of you, because the period in time that most of America has memory hold was actually pretty revolutionary. In the early months of spring 2020, when COVID began to spread, the US witnessed a momentary glimpse into a more equitable society. The entire US government was taking care of its people in ways that it hadn't before.
What the fuck is happening right now? Sorry, the claim just got what?
US government has spent so many years since blasting the public with propaganda that a lot of people today have forgotten just how revolutionary 2020 was. Policies that we were always told were absolutely impossible in America suddenly came to fruition. I want to go through a few notable.
Dude, I don't even know what direction she's going in. Is she saying, because she's going to be talking about robust welfare programs? What? Dude, what?
Ones. There was the CARES Act enacted in March 2020, which provided direct financial assistance to struggling workers by extending unemployment benefits and offering an additional $600 per week. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which also passed in 2020, mandated paid sick leave and increased funding for food assistance programs, lifting countless people out of poverty. On a state level in 2020, states like New Mexico began offering free childcare, a policy that lifted approximately 120,000 people above the poverty line. The state even began taking budget surplus directly from oil and gas revenue to fund early childhood education. This stuff was so progressive, I actually can't even imagine it happening now, which is again because of the downstream effects of all of this propaganda trying to make us forget this stuff.
Well, I just want to be clear about, like, just generally, is that a surge of money into the system isn't necessarily all good, right? Well, we have to understand something. One of the big things I talk about when I talk about Biden was how, like, he did a really good job through COVID. He got us out stronger than any other country, or any other, like, leading country, right? Because it's true. But one of the other things too is that we had a pretty high level of inflation compared to other countries. And the reason for that is because we did so many relief incentives that it put so much more money into the market at a time where demand was already high and supply was already low, because there were cuts to different supply infrastructure. And so that's what caused that's a significant contributor to what caused inflation to go up so high. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that it was like bad that what we did, and I'm a big fan of robust welfare services, especially tax very rich people, get that into the pockets of normal people that actually help society more. I'm a big proponent of that. I'm just saying that you can't just recklessly spend a bunch of stuff. So, you kind of have to try to at least balance the budget to some degree. Just something to keep in mind. But okay.
Other states, including Connecticut, implemented universal free school meal programs, ensuring that all students had access to hot, nutritious meals, regardless of income, for the first time. These policies and dozens more resulted in a significant reduction of food insecurity across America. In 2020, SNAP benefits were increased and helped feed over 15 million young people. From 2020 to 2021, the expansion of food programs across the U.S. resulted in 2.4 million households no longer being food insecure. I can't explain how life-changing this stuff was for millions and millions of people in America.
Jesus.
And people weren't just being fed. Millions were also suddenly able to get health care in 2020. The government made it easier than ever to enroll in Medicare and Medicaid, which resulted in millions of people who had been previously unable to afford health insurance suddenly able to get care.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is because they weren't able to work anymore. So they kind of had to have their healthcare expanded. I'm a big fan of some kind of universal healthcare. I'm just saying that's the reason for that.
Government invested $145 million in expanding telehealth services, meaning millions of disabled and housebound people could finally access care. Some for the first
And people who are busy with work. That's another thing too.
Time in decades. In 2020, housing insecurity plummeted thanks to federal policies like the Treasury Department's ERA program, which provided over $46 billion to support housing stability for renters. There was a nationwide eviction moratorium, and the government rolled out a suite of tenant protections. California, actually, where I live, helped thousands of previously unhoused people gain access to permanent housing. I don't want to go on too much, but these are just a sliver of the policies that we saw the government enact during the early days of the pandemic, and they showed everyone in America for the first time ever what was actually possible if we allocated just a fraction of the billions and billions of dollars that we spend on the military and things like tax cuts for the rich towards the public good. I just want to talk about 2020.
I mean, sure, yeah, I think that we should invest more money into programs. Personally, the way that I would want to go, because we're in a time where we have to expand welfare. People might want to be like, no, that's not true. Maybe have to. I'm sorry, but with technology displacing jobs and driving down wages, rich people are able to benefit more and more financially from no additional work on their part. And so we're going to have to invest into taking money from rich people through taxes and giving it out to poor people in some way, constructive way. I personally am not a huge fan of our current welfare system necessarily. I don't think it's all bad. But I think that one of the biggest problems is how conditional our welfare system can be, where you kind of, in order to get money, it could just be, you have to be poor. I know it sounds silly. Obviously, it makes sense, but then it also is silly because, let's say you're somebody who's poor and you're told, you can go get a job, but then you're going to lose all your aid, and it's going to be very difficult to get back on if you happen to lose your aid. You're probably not going to feel very incentivized to go and get a fucking job. Whereas if we had something a little more mainline, like a negative income or a negative income tax that paid you more based on how much or how little money you made, you'd have more of that you would be able to get on and off very quickly because it would literally just be based on what your income is. I feel like it would make it easier for people to have more social, more mobility or economic mobility. And that's what I would be a fan of, because I do feel like in some instances being on welfare makes it difficult for people to just move, be able to do stuff, especially if you don't have a super financially robust economy, like local economy. Going onto a welfare system could end up kind of fucking you over, right? Or, excuse me, not fucking you over, but you might not be able to get off it because the jobs might not be good enough.
Tiny bit more for a couple minutes, because again, there's this multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaign to try to make you forget all of this stuff. And it's really important
I don't think that's true at all. What is she talking about?
Remember what happened that year if you want to understand why we are where we are today. In 2020, as millions of people shifted to remote work or faced unemployment, they began to question traditional structures of labor and productivity. People started to realize that the economy could function differently and that it could prioritize human well-being over relentless productivity. These mass realizations sparked widespread discussions about systemic inequality and the role of the government in addressing it. Mutual aid networks flourished throughout 2020. Communities organized to provide each other with food, medical supplies, and support. We were all encouraged to mask and protect each other from airborne disease, not just kill our neighbors and service workers with unmitigated COVID spread. These grassroots efforts exemplified the potential for collective action and solidarity.
This video is weird because you were pretending that everything was like so neat and clean. I remember working through COVID. It was very hectic. What are you talking about? When things first came out, it was like a disaster. There were people buying up masks because they wanted to like price inflate and they wanted to make a buck off of it. There were people who were doubting masks would even be effective. The government in some instances wasn't being entirely forthcoming about like the effectiveness of different things because they were afraid that we would run out of resources. There was a huge issue because we didn't produce everything in America, so they had to take over factories to make changes. They had to take over certain factories so that they could like produce like masks and shit here. There was a lot of stuff going on that wasn't the way that she talks about it is as if everything was kind of like, oh, everything was amazing. We were all really just coming together, and like, not really. I don't know what you're talking about. You're being a little silly.
In 2020, we also saw the rise of the nature is healing meme, which spoke to the environmental impact humans were having on our planet.
I mean, listen, I worked through COVID, and I will say, I will say that like it was nice outside. I work outside. It was like the nicest summer ever during COVID. So I will say that. Wow, what a game. I will say that was pretty great.
Skies cleared with fewer people commuting to their offices, carbon emissions dropped, and
yeah, I remember that. I remember working outside. It was a beautiful summer for once.
Many wondered out loud, what if we didn't go back to normal? What if normal was the problem? Climate disasters, from wildfires in California to hurricanes devastating Central America, reminded us all how urgent the climate crisis had become. The climate movement gained momentum in 2020 as people started to argue that the economy should be restructured to be both greener and fairer. As everyone became extremely online, people began to leverage the internet.
That's certainly true. Everybody became very online. I think COVID was like horrific culturally for people. They became very terminally online. I remember when Taylor Lorenz canceled some 17-year-old black kid for making faces at gay and trans people. And then I think I talked to her about it, and she was like, oh, okay. She didn't interview, I don't even think she interviewed him. She just interviewed other people who disagreed with him. Some 17-year-old kid, and it was, I don't even know if I could find the old meme. I think it was her, but I'm pretty sure it was Taylor Lorenz. I might be wrong about that. But this was the guy's old videos. He would basically just make faces to like a video on the right, and then if he saw somebody transitioning or a gay person like putting on gay clothes, he wouldn't boo it. He would put a weird face on, and it was immature and it was wrong. But he was like 17, and he's like, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize I was being an asshole, and he apologized, and then he still got canceled. Yeah, I was correct. Here's the article. I'm pretty sure that in this article, she didn't even bother asking him any questions. She kind of just went forward with it and like canceled this kid. It was kind of a fucking shame, but you know.
As a powerful social justice tool. TikTok became a tool for IRL organizing and protest planning. Masses of people began connecting with each other online. And
well, let's be real. People didn't have any jobs to go to, so they had all the they had all the availability of doing all this shit.
Building support networks. Suddenly, people realized that the internet could be a weapon against elite systems. The online world became the default reality overnight, and people leveraged social platforms to speak truth to power.
I love how like this is such a weird whitewashed version of what happened in 2020, because it's like, dude, in 2020 things were insane. People were massively terminally online. People were getting canceled for doing like the bare minimum, and it was the most toxic, insane time ever, but it was so fun, and I was absolutely part of it in one of the most toxic ways ever. It was borderline abusive how the way that we acted towards each other in 2020. It was a fucking shit show, and Taylor Lorenz is sitting here trying to act like it was fucking like it was like, oh, it was such a great tool for this. It was mostly 15-year-olds screaming at other 15-year-olds, and then 30-year-olds making them look like idiots. Like, I'm not sure. It was kind of, looking back, not exactly the most the nicest recounting of what my platform was, but that was what it was to an extent. Although it wasn't just like 15-year-olds. It was a lot of young people, but I don't know, man. It was crazy. The jokes we get away with too are fucking wild, brother. It was a wild shit. Like the Thornberry's wild. I don't know.
Murder of George Floyd in May 2020 served as a catalyst for nationwide protests against racial injustice and police brutality.
Well, I want to just be very real here, and I don't mean to be dismissive, but George Floyd's murder was less of a catalyst than COVID. Okay, if people weren't home, bored, and on social media, nobody would have cared that George Floyd died. And I'm not trying to be rude, because like it's bad for police to overstep their bounds. And I think what happened was definitely wrong. The police should have been acting to a higher standard. I'm not sitting here saying George Floyd was exactly a model citizen or anything. But, you know, there needed to be some kind of a change. I think the conversations were good. But people only cared because they were home and they were bored from COVID. That was it. That's all it was. You were home. You were watching TikTok at like 4 times the rate that you normally are. You had nothing to distract you. The entire online world felt like it was everything. And so that's the only reason people actually protested to the degree that they protested, because they were home and they were bored. That's it. That's all it comes down to. I'm not trying to be dismissive, but like we need to look into everything. It's not just like the George Floyd situation wasn't the only thing that happened. People were bored. They had nothing else going on.
Millions participated in demonstrations demanding accountability and systemic change. The sheer scale of protests in 2020 reflected a profound shift. In 2020, phrases like white privilege, systemic oppression, and defund the police entered the mainstream.
Yeah, idiots. Defund the police is such a bad idea. About reform the police, you know what I mean?
Institutions from corporations to universities rushed to acknowledge their role in perpetuating injustice.
Rush to acknowledge? What are you talking about? You mean they went online and virtue signaled? This is a very charitable interpretation of like what Ed said we're going on. What the fuck?
A lot of it was performative. Like a lot of it was performative. But some of it was real.
My favorite was when there was a guy who was like, I forgot what it was. I think it was some dude. He's like, I'll give a black content creator $100 if they have like content I like or something. I was like, what are you paying black people to dance for you? I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Dude, things were so fucking crazy, bro. It's actually insane.
Again, in 2020, for the first time, millions of people began questioning the legitimacy of systems that were long seen as unchangeable. Why is healthcare tied to employment? Why do billionaires exist in a world where children go hungry? Why do we spend more on police and prisons than on schools and housing? 2020 marked a turning point, a realization that the world as it was wasn't working for most people, and that another, better world was possible.
That's probably true. I will say this is true. People were home more. They were like, you know, educate themselves, whether it was all good or bad. Some was good, some was bad. On different ways, different things happen, and they do become much more socially aware. I don't think that they necessarily channeled their energy in a productive way. But like, yeah, that's true. People became more socially aware, and they started channeling their energy into, you know, better ways, or at least becoming more aware of what was going on. For sure, I agree with that.
One where people are valued more than profits. Millions of people began to see clearly what had been hidden in plain sight for decades. Of course, not everyone embraced this moment. The backlash was real and predictable. The term woke was treated like a slur in some circles and a way to dismiss the very real empathy and awareness that defined this.
I think it was back then. I think it was okay. I think making fun of woke shit was okay back then, because shit got way too left, way too fast. I will agree with that, to be honest with you. Nowadays, like anything is woke. If you think gay people have the right to get married, it's considered woke, which is fucking preposterous. But back then, I feel like, you know, people were saying wild ass shit.
But the pushback only confirmed that a major power shift was underway. People were finally beginning to seek systemic change, but then the boot came down hard. Biden was elected that fall and began working overtime to dismantle the social safety net that had expanded in 2020.
What? Wait, what? Sorry, what she's saying is dumb.
Elected that fall and began working overtime to dismantle the social safety net that had expanded in 2020.
What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. He expanded social safety nets. No, like through COVID. Like he came in and he continued, and like he added more relief. He extended most of the relief. What is she talking about?
This is when we saw the beginning of the disenchantment that would ultimately result in these assassination memes. Immediately after taking office, Biden falsely declared the pandemic over in
What? This is the end of 2022. COVID was, for the most part, over. Joe Biden says COVID-19 pandemic is over. How would you say it's falsely over? This is September 19th, 2022, over a year after he was in office. What?
order to force people back to work.
Force people back to work? How long do you think we could shut down our infrastructure? Wait, why is she being so stupid?
Officials began blasting the public with far-right propaganda on COVID, lying to
Far-right propaganda? What?
force people back to work. Officials began
ACLU statement on Biden's administration decision to rescind Trump era memo on. Wait, what? What?
blasting the public with far-right propaganda on COVID, lying
What's the propaganda?
to them about the disease, and convincing people to sacrifice their health and their bodies for the stock market.
Are you? Is she fucking stupid? Bro, we're talking about 2022, 2 years after the pandemic started. People have to start getting back to work. What it's far right-wing propaganda to say that we need to at some point start getting back to work to continue our society and continue the flow of money. Biden expanded social welfare services through his entire fucking administration, and she's sitting here saying that Joe Biden, a moderate leftist, is a far right propagandist. What? Is she stupid?
The message was clear. Forget 2020. It's back to work, now with even fewer health protections and no meaningful treatments for the brand new, highly transmissible airborne virus that ravages your heart, neurological system, and immune system. And is still
she's so stupid. Right now, she's doing vaccine denial. She's doing vaccine denial right now. She's so dumb. Are you kidding? What?
sacrifice their health and their bodies for the stock market. The message was clear. Forget 2020. It's back to work, now with even fewer health protections and no meaningful treatments for the brand new,
no meaningful treatments. There's a vaccine that was refined by the end of 2022. And COVID was more transmissible, but it was also less dangerous by the end of 2022. And it evolved to spread more, but be less dangerous. What is she talking about? What the fuck?
Transmissible airborne virus that ravages your heart, neurological system, and immune system, and is still spreading at pandemic levels.
What? Where do you see that? COVID is still evolving and finding new ways to evade immune systems. Sorry, this is your information that it's spreading at pandemic levels? What? What the fuck is she an idiot?
Even today in 2025.
You think in 2025 we have the same issue with the insinuation is that we have the same issue in 2025 that we did with COVID in 2020. Dude, this woman is incredibly stupid.
Jamie Cohen, a media studies professor at CUNY Queens College, told me, quote, Biden rushed the end of the safety protocols in part because people started to gain a sense of consciousness. What? Biden and other elite leaders realized the collective power that the public had in 2020, especially online. People
I can't do this. I can't do it with this person. I can't deal with this stupidity. I can't deal with the fucking terminally online 30-year-old woman sitting here talking about how Biden ended the pandemic because people were so woke he needed to distract you. Oh, really? Do you think maybe people just wanted to get back to work because they were fucking depressed because they were doing nothing but sitting at home and fucking chattering on TikTok all day? You think it's just why, dude, why is she being so conspiratorial? This is so weird. This fucking weird little activist journalist or whatever the fuck he is. I don't give a fuck about who this guy is. People needed to work. They wanted to go back to work. They were getting bored. They needed to do stuff. They wanted to make more meaningful income and have some more meaning in their life. She's 40? Holy fuck. Dude, this is the weirdest fucking propaganda piece I've ever seen.
People were realizing that we too could have the social safety net that many other countries in the world benefit from. And
we can still have that. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with Biden.
It's a conscious choice by people in power not to let us have it. People on the left and the right also gained clarity about who is really in charge and who controls those levers.
Oh, who's in charge? Would you explain that to me there, Taylor Lorenz? Who's in charge? What do you think people are talking about?
But while Biden could force people back to work,
is she gonna acknowledge the rise of inflation? No, she doesn't understand. I don't think that she understands what inflation even is. I don't think that she's smart enough to understand anything that she's talking about. She doesn't really get anything that she says.
In unsafe conditions, he couldn't force them to be less online. And by 2021, we were already seeing that there was no longer any distinction between the offline and online.
Oh, you think she's going to talk about how they wanted to ban TikTok?
The wall between the two was completely obliterated.
That's 100% not true. People are still incredibly terminally online. We have not obliterated the wall of on and offline behavior. I'll just be honest with you with that one.
And nowhere was this more apparent than at the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. As protesters stormed the building that day, they carried flags and wore t-shirts emblazoned with memes like Pepe the Frog and the Kekistan flag, which originated in extremist online subcultures. Reactionary influencers live streamed the insurrection as fans rewarded them with digital gifts and money, depending on how far they made it into the building. This convergence of internet culture and physical action.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I just realized what this is. This is an unironic psyop strategy to try to get conservatives to like her again. If they ever did. This is insane. Like, regardless of whether you're a progressive or conservative, Democrat, Republican, January 6th was a bunch of people attacking the Capitol building at the direction of Trump's words. He literally tried to pressure Mike Pence into accepting faulty electors to change the flow, to change the outcome of the election. That's why Mike Pence doesn't work with Trump anymore. This is a fact. I'm sorry. You could be upset about it all you want. I think the best arguments from conservatives I hear are like, okay, but I think that it was stolen from him. You're wrong, but okay, at least you're being consistent. That's what it was. Taylor Lorenz not acknowledging this fact is because this is the new Democratic strategy. Or, excuse me, this is the new strategy from dumb fuck leftists, which is like, okay, guys, Trump's winning. What should we do? Let's guzzle his fucking cum of him and his audience. Guys, COVID was actually a conspiracy. You're right. And guys, Trump, actually, January 6th was just like a thing that happened. Okay. Dude, these people are dishonest. Like, disagree with me, hate me, do whatever you want, all you want. But like, this woman is dishonest. She does not give a fuck, dude. She doesn't give a shit. This is so dishonest. This is fucking insane.
Signaled a new era where internet-born ideologies could precipitate real-world upheaval at scale. The insurrection proved without a doubt that the internet's influence extended far beyond screens and could manifest in tangible, often violent actions. The event also marked a moment where a significant portion of the populace began to perceive violence as a viable means to achieve political ends. Surveys.
You think that's the start? Wait, what? Are you stupid?
Violent influence extended far beyond screens and could manifest in tangible, often violent actions. The event also marked a moment where a significant portion of the populace began to perceive violence as a viable means to achieve political ends.
Now you're just being stupid. Well, you've been being stupid. Like, not for nothing. That was a sentiment that people felt in 2020 when they were doing the whole George Floyd thing. This isn't like, oh my God, January 6th was the mark of people realizing if they destroyed stuff, then they would get their way, or something along those lines. People were doing this in 2020 as well, during like the riots with George Floyd. People were doing it then as well. It's not just this one time. Obviously, I think that, what happened in January 6th was worse, but it's not exclusive to, okay, whatever.
Surveys conducted around this period revealed that approximately 40% of Republicans and 41% of independents believe that violence against the government could
is
be
that a good or a bad? I wonder if she's co-signing the idea of like political violence.
Justified. This idea that violence is the answer or that violence is necessary for political change.
It can be sometimes. It just wasn't in that instance.
Is not typical in a functioning democracy. And this was back in 2021. A Pew Research poll at the time showed that the American public's confidence in the government had reached its lowest point in decades. There was a widespread perception by late 2021 that our government was driven almost wholly by self-interest and corruption, leading to distrust in the entire system.
Sure. And who do you think was like the biggest proponent of pushing actual unhinged conspiracies, which was like Trump and his constituents? Let's just be clear. There are issues in the government. Trump is an exacerbation of all those problems. Like, he is those problems immortalized. He's refined. He exaggerated. Just to be absolutely clear, so we can keep it 100, as some would say. But okay.
Ariel Hassel, assistant professor of communication and media at the University of Michigan, conducted a study at the time that found that cynicism was skyrocketing, and pretty much everyone was starting to see our political system as a farce. This cynicism was being seen outside the political arena too, in things like the rise of meme stocks and the great GameStop pump around this time. Online communities like the subreddit Wall Street Bets were suddenly bringing institutional stock market investors and trading apps like Robinhood to their knees. People, especially young people, began to see that everything could be manipulated manipulated and nothing mattered. The entire idea of working a 9 to 5 for 40 years just to one
I think this 40-year-old is cosplaying as like as part of the revolution or something. It's fucking crazy.
day retire in a meager house before dying of lack of health insurance seems like a scam when you could just make millions overnight pumping AMC without ever even going to college. The crypto boom throughout 2021 and 2022 exacerbated this nihilistic sentiment. This period led to what was essentially a mass blackpilling, a term that denotes a deep-seated cynicism and disillusionment with systemic structures. This disillusionment manifested in various ways. Most people, including most liberals and leftists even, retreated into full-on COVID denial. Overwhelmed by the scale of public health challenges and apparent indifference of leadership to mass death, they drank down right-wing propaganda. Others vocalized their dissent, trying to explain that COVID never ended. It didn't just go away. The government just...
Well, that's what you're saying. The COVID did effectively end the pandemic aspect of it, and it has basically become like a common cold. It's worse than that, but it's not. It is much more managed than it ever used to be. That's kind of the whole point.
Wants you to ignore it and to keep working. They only face backlash and abuse. This
I don't understand. Is this whole video about not having to work? I don't get it.
environment of gaslighting and suppression
Gaslighting?
amplified people's feelings of isolation.
Gaslighting people into what? To going to get a job, going back to work? What?
By
The issue isn't that people have to work. What the fuck is she talking about?
2022, pressure built and people could feel that life was never going back to normal. The ground had fundamentally shifted beneath them. Something felt off and wrong. It was different, but it was hard to pinpoint what. These feelings were immortalized in the meme that year that became known as the vibe shift.
Yeah, so I don't think any of these memes were like as popular as she's trying to make them seem like they were. But okay.
Nihilism took hold, and this is when the memory holding of 2020 really accelerated. People were pressured to rip off their masks, throw caution to the wind, and stop caring about others. The public dealt with their collective trauma through hedonistic nihilism.
What are you talking about? People were fucking crying about COVID the entire time, especially conservatives claiming it wasn't even real. What does she mean when she says this? This is like such a rewriting of history.
And deep narcissism. This was also reflected in a slew of memes that became popular around that time, all of which prioritized centering yourself above others. Pretty much everyone had...
Sorry, I just want to be clear here. This is 27 memes that speak to the narcissist in all of us. The word narcissist and the term narcissism have like evolved from actually like an actual mental health condition to like, oh, when somebody engages in some silly behavior. This idea that it's like, oh yeah, narcissism was at an all-time high. No, people weaponizing mental health is at an all-time high. People pretending that narcissism was like in their everyday lives and that people that they knew were narcissists took off. That's what really took off. People sitting here and desperately looking for some kind of clout from pretending that they had mental health problems. That's what really took off. Not that. What are you talking about? That's the actual thing that took off. People were like, "Oh man, my ex was a narcissist. They used to do this and that, and they were really. You guys were probably just young and fucking stupid." What is she talking about?
Around that time, all of which prioritized centering yourself above others. Pretty much everyone had
centering yourself above others isn't a narcissistic behavior on its own. Like fundamentally speaking, it is not a narcissistic behavior to center yourself over other people. Like it is okay to prioritize yourself and depending on the circumstance. You realize that's what I would argue is one of the things that like young people struggle with is that they're so like they're too nice. Where they like, oh, I don't want to offend anyone. Like they're fucking. That's something I would say is like a fucking issue with some young people. What are you talking about?
Main character syndrome, and there was this heavy refocus on individualism. The juxtaposition of mass death from unmitigated COVID spread and government inaction, coupled with a seemingly rigged financial and political system, fostered a sense.
Seemingly rigged? I think it's more than seemingly rigged. What? Why is she sitting here with all saying all these words, but she can't even be confident about that?
Sense of betrayal. Nothing matters anymore, so you might as well enjoy life. Unalive your neighbor by infecting them with a deadly disease. Who cares about
what the fuck are you talking about?
About vulnerable people anymore?
Bro, shoot the
Just
bear.
Get yours. Our entire economic and political system is being held together by a string, and all you can depend on is yourself. But while everyone was dancing their pain away in 2022, elites were.
She's acting like COVID was like a fucking massive like threat in 2022. What the fuck is she talking about? What the hell's the matter with her? Yeah, COVID is still a big deal. What does she do? This is insane. This whole video is a white woman moment. True. What?
Claiming their power. In October 2020.
I hate people who talk about COVID who didn't have to work during it. They're so annoying. They're honestly so fucking annoying. Because like this woman obviously didn't have to work through COVID, and she's sitting here like pretending that she knows what the fuck she's talking about.
22, Elon Musk arrived at Twitter HQ in San Francisco carrying a bathroom sink. In the first few months after taking over the company, he rolled back DEI policies and allowed hordes of white supremacists and extremists back onto his platform. He revamped the algorithm to boost billionaires and downrank progressive activists. He banned a slew of journalists, including me, for reporting critically on him and other tech leaders.
Okay.
Far right.
Well, you know what? Based on what this video is, I could kind of understand why he would do that now. I've never liked Elon Musk, but now I get it. You're obnoxious.
Extremists that were previously marginalized were suddenly waging successful comebacks by capitalizing on the manufactured backlash to woke. Alex Jones was replatformed in 2023 as influencers like Andrew Tate surged in popularity. Billionaires like Musk were able to operate seemingly with impunity, and Democrats who were ostensibly in charge weren't doing anything about it. By the summer of 2023, you could see this nihilism and anti-elite sentiment creeping out all over the internet. In June 2023, the implosion of the Ocean Gate Titan submarine, piloted by billionaire Stockton Rush on a vanity expedition to view the Titanic, became an immediate meme. Within minutes of the news breaking, people were joking about imploding billionaires all over TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. People posted with glee about, quote, natural selection. They made playlists joking about it and posted lists of other billionaires they hoped would take a submarine ride. People weren't openly calling for billionaires to be executed yet, but they were certainly celebrating when they died. I would argue that the submarine memes of 2023 were the moment that it became clear that millions of people online believed that maybe the rich shouldn't make it out alive. That same
I guess. Isn't she the rich, though?
month, we saw people rally.
I guess I don't really care that a bunch of rich people died in a submarine after spending a bunch of money to go into that submarine. Like, I'm really not that fucking pressed about it. You could have just not done, like, you know, stupid idiot shit.
Around orcas who inexplicably began attacking and sinking yachts. Memes and parody news sites joked about the orcas literally eating the rich. By the end of that summer, Burning Man was engulfed in mud due to heavy rainfall, and the entire internet once again began relishing in rich people's suffering. The perceived irony of a gathering that championed radical self-reliance yet attracted tech elites arriving in private jets and luxury RVs was too much. The Schadenfreude wasn't just merely about the festival. It reflected a broader societal disdain for the wealthy, particularly those seen as out of touch or hypocritical. Then October 7th happened. Palestinians who had been oppressed, tortured, and ethnically cleansed by Israel's apartheid regime for...
So just to be clear, if you want to argue that ethnic cleansing is happening now, that's fine. There was no ethnic cleansing before October 7th. They were definitely forced into Gaza, like definitely a problem. It's an issue. There's a whole historical conflict there. But their population was growing. It's hard to say that they were being ethnically cleansed, especially since 20% of the population living in Israel proper are Palestinian people. So, like, you know, after the fact, definitely. You know, I don't think it's unreasonable to call it a genocide or ethnic cleansing now, especially since Netanyahu, it seems to be his strategy to try to get these people out of the land, right? And so a form of ethnic cleansing can be to, like, you know, oust them from lands as well. But before then, it was not an ethnic cleansing. I think it's appropriate to be proportionate in our shit.
Decades fought back. Israel responded by committing a live-streamed genocide for the entire world to see, slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent children and committing grave atrocities and war crimes. Israel murdered...
I'll say that they're definitely disproportionate response, but their initial response was justifiable, honestly.
Hundreds of journalists, bombed schools and hospitals, and did it...
The settlements in the West Bank were pretty bad. I'm not saying that they weren't bad. I'm just saying it was not a genocide before October 7th. It was not ethnic cleansing before October 7th. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying we need to be proportionate. If the population is growing, it's very difficult to argue that there is a genocide or an ethnic cleansing before October 7th. After October 7th, different story.
All in the open for anyone with internet access to witness. But that's not how the mainstream media reported it. Suddenly, U.S. airwaves were flooded with pro-Israel propaganda.
Well, they had the right to fight back, just not disproportionately so. That's where the issue comes into play. It's not that they fought back. It's to what degree they fought back, right? Like, that's the real issue there. But okay.
Papers like the New York Times began pushing outright lies and easily debunked hoaxes in an...
What did they say that was an outright lie?
Propaganda. Papers like the New York
Times admits the Hamas rape story was fabricated. Well, the rapes did happen, but the story got exaggerated. Sure, but there was a literal UN... What is this article from? The UN literally reported that there was, like, mass rapes on October 7th.
Times began pushing outright lies and
New York Times tries to cover up October 7th mass rapes. Well, there was rapes on October 7th. Like, there was a mass rape. It just wasn't systemic rape. Right here, this is the UN. Reasonable grounds to believe conflict-related sexual violence occurred on October during Israel during the 7th October attacks. Yeah. So there were rapes on October 7th. It just wasn't a systemic rape. Or they didn't have enough proof to say it was like systemic rapes that Hamas ordered people to rape people. But okay, gotcha. Cool.
million households no longer being
Oh, this isn't the right one. No.
and easily debunked hoaxes in an effort to manufacture consent for the war crimes and ethnic cleansing of
Sorry.
Palestinians.
Okay, both sides will engage in propaganda missions. I don't really feel like getting too much into this again. Okay.
College students and other people who spoke out against this were met with extreme violence.
I wish we would acknowledge the timeline where, like, they had the right to defend themselves originally, but not to the degree that they did. Or they had the right to retaliate, but just not to the degree that they retaliated. That's like the biggest problem. There is a timeline of this.
Police. Young students at Columbia University faced federal charges for peaceful protests, and the government under Biden began cracking down aggressively on speech. At the same time, RICO charges were being
Well, I think it's important to just keep in mind that there was like a rise of anti-Semitism against like American Jewish people. And so, like, some of these protests became unproductive. They went from advocating for Palestinians to using it as an excuse to batter Jewish people in general.
Being levied at protesters fighting against Cop City in Atlanta. And people who spoke up about social justice were fired from their jobs and blacklisted from industries. It was a radicalizing moment on the internet. Suddenly, people could see that our system is actually totally comfortable with violence, as long as the violence is perpetuated against vulnerable and oppressed people. It's only violence against powerful people that's punished. Kyle Rittenhouse.
Probably. I mean, I suppose that's true in general.
House, for instance, was acquitted of all charges for shooting an anti-fascist protester dead. While
You're such a stupid fucking bitch. I hate you so much. Holy fuck. Kyle Rittenhouse deserved to be fucking... Kyle Rittenhouse didn't do anything wrong. If you should look at the situation, I don't care. He showed up to defend some fucking building. A pedophile attacked him, so he shot at the fucking pedophile and killed the pedophile that was constantly trying to fight him. And then other people who were well-meaning thought that Kyle Rittenhouse was an active shooter, and then he defended himself against him, and that's unfortunate. But it's the pedophile's fault that that attacked him in the first place. So, like, give me a fucking break. Kyle Rittenhouse deserves to be innocent. You guys having this like fucking meltdown over Kyle Rittenhouse is one of the reasons why people hate the left, because you guys are insane morons.
peaceful college students were ending up in jail.
They were arrested for trespassing. They weren't even charged. Like, yeah, they were told to leave, and they were occupying part of a fucking library in the university, and I don't know how much damage they did, but they were like jumping on tables and shit, so they were arrested and then they were let go. They weren't even charged. Like, who gives a fuck?
Witnessing the most graphic and horrific war crimes in Palestine constantly via their phones also normalized violence to the American public in a way that I don't think it ever had been before. I think finally people were able to see exactly how violent and hypocritical the US empire is, and how cavalier people in power are about that hypocrisy. You can see these beliefs reflected in polls throughout 2023. For instance, a 2023 survey by the Public Religion Research Institute showed that about a quarter of U.S. citizens agreed that Americans, quote, may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. This was up sharply from just 15% in 2021. And I also just want to stress again how high both of these numbers are for a country.
I love this video so far because it's sitting here talking about how people feel like they need to move closer to political violence, and not a single time has she pinned any of this on Trump. Not even a small percentage. So far, it's all Biden's fault. Her big hit video is that Biden was the catalyst for this entire problem, and she didn't even say that Trump riled up J6ers. She's literally just trying to sit here and say, conservatives, I'm your friend. Come look at my content. This is like pathetic to sit here and suggest that Trump's not at least part of the equation. He made fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband for getting attacked with a hammer. What are you talking about? Like, it'd be fine. The overall take would be fine, but she refuses to at least give some level of anything to Donald Trump. This is psychotic. This is like weird. It's like pathetic.
Country that's theoretically a democracy. Like in normal democracies, you don't have these high numbers. By 2024, a pervasive sense of disillusionment had taken hold. Joe Biden's decision to seek re-election despite widespread concerns about his age and cognitive abilities caused people to question whether our democratic system was really working. His disastrous debate performance and revelations about the Democratic Party's efforts to downplay his mental issues only sowed more distrust. For most of 2024, it felt like we were a nation sleepwalking with no one at the helm. When Trump was shot at a Pennsylvania...
I think that the way that you're... Biden definitely could have been more present, and he definitely has a decline in his cognition, but calm times were not a bad thing. And that's part of it. He just wasn't like, he was calm, and it was good. It was nice. We were getting things done. Things were moving in a decent direction.
Rally in July of 2024, blood wasn't even dry on his ear before it had become a meme. People bemoaned the fact that he hadn't turned his head even slightly to the side, which would have had deadly consequences. What? The assassination attempt normalized discourse about Trump's death and fed these overall nihilistic sentiments. Later that summer, throughout Kamala Harris's campaign, the Democratic Party further disenfranchised people by refusing to listen to voters' concerns about Gaza, COVID, and more.
Dude, say Trump one time. Why will she not pin any of this on Trump?
In what became an infamous meme in August 2024, Democratic delegates literally plugged their ears to drown out anti-genocide protesters. It sent a clear message to the American public: we will not listen to you, and we do not care what you have to say. People's growing disenfranchisement with the system extended to the electoral process itself. Polls at the time,
she's not
indicated that
she's not giving any criticism to fucking Donald Trump for any of this. Donald Trump was exponentially worse for Gaza. What are you talking about? What the fuck?
Only 37% of Americans believed the 2024 elections would be both honest and open. 43% had serious doubts about our democracy. These numbers reflect a significant decline in trust. This skepticism was
Why do you think that is? Why are you not blaming Trump for anything?
Exacerbated by concerns over media transparency and the manipulation of information. By the end of 2024, a record number of people reported feeling powerless and disillusioned, viewing our political system as irreparably broken and unresponsive to their needs. As the academic Jamie Cohen told me, quote, much like many authoritarian countries, people realized America is a democracy in name only. Then, on December 4th, 2024, United Health CEO Brian Thompson was shot dead in the street. Within days, the police had apprehended Luigi Mangione as their prime suspect. Even before his arrest, the killing became a meme, and millions rallied behind Mangione's alleged actions. The public and legal response to Mangione once again revealed the massive disparity between how people in power treat different victims of violence. Mangione currently faces federal and state charges including murder and terrorism.
It probably needs to, but honestly, I don't really care that a CEO died.
Attorney General Pam...
Especially not one that's entire job is to let people die by not getting access to healthcare in order to make as much money as possible, which is exactly what that is. Let's be absolutely real here.
Bondi announced that the state would pursue the death penalty. Meanwhile, the week Mangione was arrested, Daniel Penny, a former white Marine, was acquitted after choking Jordan Neely, a black homeless man experiencing a mental health crisis on the subway, to death. As Cohen told me, quote,
well, just to be clear, he was he was like a threat to people around him. You know, he was the system failed him for sure. Somebody with a mental health problem. Oh, I can't believe I didn't press that. Okay. Somebody with like a mental health problem, like a homeless person with a mental health problem with like a history of violence, like I think that the system failed him, but there's probably a little bit of a difference there. I mean, okay.
It felt like there was no such thing as penalty any longer unless you're saying something that criticizes people in power or supports social justice. Just a few months later, in February 2025, the US government responded to the escalating Tesla takedown protests with severe crackdowns, and officials began labeling acts of vandalism against Tesla cars as domestic terrorism. Trump warned that people who harmed Tesla cars could face up to
we mentioned Trump. Oh my God.
20 years in prison, potentially serving sentences in El Salvador. The FBI established a specialized task force to investigate incidents of Tesla car attacks. At the same time, innocent lawful residents of this country began getting deported for thought crimes. Chaotic tariff policies have plunged our economy into chaos. We have witnessed the massive undue firing of federal workers and are experiencing unprecedented crackdowns on speech.
Yes,
All of these
and who is that because of?
Tensions reached a boiling point by
dude, this video, the tone of this video is so weird. She'll say things Trump did was bad, but then not really pin them on Trump. But then she'll give Kamala Harris a ton of shit because she wasn't perfect on Gaza. This is such a fucking weird cuck video.
March, when the someone's gotta do it memes really started to become pervasive. Posts endorsing political violence targeting Trump and to a lesser extent Elon Musk have racked up tens of millions of likes. These memes have become some of the most popular content online in recent months. By early April, outlets like the New York Post were already bemoaning the rising, quote, assassination culture on the left, as if the right hasn't embraced the same culture for years.
Oh my god, finally she's giving fucking right-wingers some fucking shit.
The Network Contagion Research Institute and Rutgers University's Social Perception Lab recently issued a report about the rise in pro-assassination content online. The report found that 55% of left-of-center internet users considered the
Are you kidding me?
Trump somewhat justified, while 48% felt the same about Elon Musk. The report explained that these attitudes are not isolated and are part of a broader political shift tied to feelings of powerlessness. The researchers emphasized the need for proactive measures to counter this trend. They begged institutions to reinforce norms and promote, quote, constructive political dialogue. But that ship has sailed. Asking the public to uphold norms while Trump flouts due process on a near daily basis is a joke. But the one
Oh, finally. Jesus Christ. She's finally fucking criticizing Donald Trump. Holy fuck. It took her half the video to get to the point where she's actually criticizing Donald Trump.
One thing that I actually do agree with the NCRI on is that the spread of content promoting political violence is a sign of a deeply, deeply unhealthy democratic society.
No shit. Holy fuck. Thanks so much.
Don Caldwell, editor-in-chief of Know Your Meme, said that the reason pro-assassination memes have become so popular is because they're cathartic. Especially when people feel powerless and there are events happening in the world that are out of their control, people use these memes as a release. Josh Citarella, a researcher who studies extremism, told me that these memes are exploding in popularity right now because, quote, the liberal project has basically failed. People do not believe in a lawful and orderly society anymore. The enormous accumulation of wealth and power by oligarchs invalidates the rule of law. The end result is that you can theoretically have executions in the public square. That's what we're going back to. People are advocating for these things on social media because the rules don't matter anymore. In a recent
Sure, I guess that's true. I mean, I think that decency has died. I think that's a pretty big reason for a lot of this shifting. Because to a pretty big extent, I think that decency has died. I mean, their decency is gone, which is I understand why it's gone, but
piece in The Nation titled "The Age of the Assassination Meme is Here," Alex Peter writes, quote, assassination discourse has become ambient, not quite satire, not quite sedition, a feeling, a refusal to say what you mean because meaning things can actually be dangerous. And yet, people do mean things. The line between the person who's joking and the person who's serious has never been thinner. At the heart of all of this is a kind of disassociation. It's an inability to process the enormity of everything. The climate is collapsing. Fascism is rising. Healthcare is a game show. We're all screaming into the void. Is it really so surprising that
we? Well, I don't think that you're particularly relatable there, girly pop, but okay.
the language of internet memes and murder has started to overlap? Peter notes that the phrase, quote, when it happens has become both a threat and a prayer. As Citarella explained, COVID, Gaza, and all the events over the past few years have revealed just how many people's lives are truly expendable. We see the government pushing the idea
True, I agree with that.
that poor, immunocompromised, disabled, and trans people are better off dead. Tens of thousands of innocent
I find it interesting that she's giving like so much shit in this situation, which great, that's fantastic. But again, she's not blaming Trump for their health or healthcare. Like a big part of the reason our healthcare is shit is because of Donald Trump, and I'm really tired of people not acknowledging that. First and foremost, like Obamacare was good. People like to complain about, oh, my premiums went up. Yeah, you want to know why a big reason? The reason for that is it's because you can no longer be denied for pre-existing conditions, which is like overwhelmingly understood to be a good thing by people in America. Right? Trump came in, he said he's going to fix it because it was still expensive. I agree. And the way that you would actually fix it is by having the government have more bargaining power by like expanding healthcare, like Medicare, making it for everybody so that they can have more bargaining power. Or you can let insurance companies, outsource for drugs, or you can let companies outsource for drugs from other countries that have cheaper prices so that it would increase the competition so that people couldn't massively inflate prices. Like Ozempic is like 10 times more expensive in America than like Denmark. There's a lot of things you could do. He came in and all he did was remove the individual mandate, which generally lowers prices. It says like, hey, younger, healthy people, we're going to have to like have healthcare, or we're going to have to, tax you more because we're trying to incentivize people to get onto healthcare so they can help pay for older people's healthcare. And then when they get old, they'll have their healthcare paid for as well. That's the fundamental idea of it.
innocent children in Gaza are deemed expendable. These memes are saying, okay, if slaughtering people is deemed acceptable by the state, then why can't we slaughter the people actually doing harm? Citarella said, quote, I think there was an era of liberal society in which there was a generally agreed upon value of the individual.
Sure.
You would even grant your enemies certain imbued or alienable rights. As much as people might have despised a certain person in power or whatever, they would also kind of have this moral conviction that they would not root for this person's bodily harm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you look at like someone like John McCain, you know, when there was people that were like one of his people that, you know, supported him, some old woman. It's a famous scene where she's like, oh, I don't like Obama because he's like fucking Muslim or whatever. And he's like, no, like he's not, like he's an American, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, Trump has, he's completely decimated any level of decency that's left.
The majority of people supported more discursive political means like voting and peaceful protests. But I don't think that's the consensus anymore. I think we're
no shit. Why is that?
Sitting on top of a pressure cooker.
All right, if she acknowledges that Donald Trump is the big reason for decency dying, you know, when he's making fun of people for getting hit with hammers and shit, then I will be like, okay, finally.
Advocating for political assassinations is the most clear sign that millions of people.
This video is so afraid. This video is such a coward. This is such a coward video. That's my problem with this video. It's just a coward video more than anything else. Like it's too afraid to be like, hey, this person did this thing. It's putting as much as they can on Democrats because they know that it's safe. Because the left consumes itself and the right needs to be fucking coddled. And so it puts more, like most of the agency onto fucking Democrats in this instance, instead of being like, hey, Donald Trump is a pretty big issue with a lot of these problems. You want to explore like how the stage was set for Donald Trump to do these things? That's perfectly fine, but
no longer have hope in our system. If there was any sort of legible or coherent plan by people in power to improve things for average people and hold those like Trump and Elon to account, the public would have faith that someone, anyone, was steering the ship. But because there's no plan and no one in power, especially the Democrats, seem to want to save us, people are seeking extreme solutions. And I just want to point out once again that the right has long embraced this style of extreme rhetoric. They've openly supported violent vigilante justice for years by turning...
How is your example going to... Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. How is your example... How is your example going to be fucking Kyle Rittenhouse? Like, she keeps doing this thing. That's not vigilante justice. Some fucking guy attacked him while he was sitting there trying to defend his fucking, like, his area where his dad worked. What?
Figures like Kyle Rittenhouse and Derek Chauvin into right-wing heroes, rewarding them with an endless stream of money and media opportunities. And to give you a few more examples, in 2019, Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a Facebook video accusing Nancy Pelosi of treason and saying that she had committed crimes punishable by death. Greene has advocated for the execution of prominent Democrats, including Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, as well as FBI agents. Lauren Boebert and other Republican members of Congress flaunt guns openly and call for violence against migrants. In 2020, Well,
I mean, them having guns is... Can you show us where she was like...
Republican members of Congress, Hillary Clinton, as well as FBI agents. Lauren Boebert...
I mean, she's generally right about this, I think. But I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse is a good example. But...
And other Republican members of Congress flaunt guns openly and call for violence against migrants. In 2020, Donald Trump Jr. posted a photo on Instagram holding an AR-15 rifle adorned with Crusader imagery and the phrase, "Do Vault," a slogan associated with the medieval crusades that has been adopted by violent far-right extremist groups. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, the architect of Project 2025, basically said that the United States is undergoing a second American revolution that might not be bloodless. Matt Shea, a former Republican Washington state representative, distributed a manifesto that advocated for the killing of all non-Christian males who refuse to follow biblical law. Republicans frequently speak about executing migrants, undocumented immigrants, disabled and trans people, and others who they feel are undesirable.
Sure. I mean, this is fair. You know, as I'm watching the video, I wonder, and if I'm being charitable, I wonder if part of her strategy was to decide to hold any meaningful criticisms for any conservatives until the end of the video to potentially get them to watch this video. But the entire first half is just an absolute fucking conservative cum guzzle.
For instance, in 2024, Republican Congressman Mike Collins tweeted about Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet's practice of executing political opponents by throwing them from helicopters. He suggested killing a migrant arrested in New York by giving them, quote, a free helicopter ride. As the 2024 article in The Nation notes, quote, the state isn't anti-violence, it's anti-unsanctioned violence. Murder is only inappropriate if it happens in the wrong direction. Hence, the rise of assassination memes. Jamie Cohen, the academic, said, quote, Gen Z especially feels powerless in this system, and they're posting this content because it's their way of expressing their emotions and feelings about not having power. There's a collective nihilism online right now, and these memes show people aren't alone in those thoughts. These memes may feel glib, but they exist within a framework of real political breakdown. They're a symptom of a profoundly sick society. But it's not sick in the way that most people would think. In my opinion, it's not sick that people want to unalive Trump and the billionaires who are responsible for so much suffering. It's sick that people in power have normalized such obscene levels of systemic violence, especially against marginalized groups. The someone's gotta do it memes also show how inadequate traditional political language is in describing what we're all going through right now. The ways that people, especially young people, express themselves online by being ambiguous, sarcastic, and kind of ironic are actually adaptive behaviors. People are trying to articulate the outrage and desperation that they feel at a time when too much directness will get you punished. That's why all these memes allow for a certain level of plausible deniability.
Yeah, no shit.
This is also part of why attempts to suppress these types of memes, whether from the left or the right, tend to backfire. Treating them like traditional criminal threats rather than cultural signals misdiagnoses the root problem. It escalates distrust and it reinforces the perception that the system doesn't actually fear violence, it simply won't tolerate dissent. And I'd argue that the more expressions like this are punished, the more they're validated in the eyes of those who share the public's underlying frustrations. But what I hope I've shown you in this video is that the someone needs to do it meme is not just about venting frustration. It's a cultural phenomenon shaped by years of policy failure, betrayal, and institutional decay. It represents a widespread recognition that no meaningful change is coming from traditional political structures, especially the Democratic Party.
Especially the Democratic. I don't get this. I don't get it. I don't understand how the majority of this video. Oh my god, she's so fucking dumb. Especially the Democratic Party. I don't understand this. Is this a new strategy to come guzzle fucking conservatives, especially Democrats? Yeah, the Democrats could be doing better. Republicans are worse. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you. What are Republicans trying to do? Gut welfare services, increase money on the military, reduce taxes on the rich, and the Democrats are like floundering. Sure, they're like very moderate left, incredibly. They're like, hey, let's do some housing incentives. They could definitely be doing more, but like, what is up with this fucking pathetic loser infighting slop of bullshit?
And that basic terms of our social contract have eroded beyond repair. But if we want this energy to lead anywhere productive, we have to do more than just analyze the meme's popularity. We have to confront the larger question of what now? What should we actually do if nothing's changing? To answer that, we need to talk about the erosion of collective memory. One of the most significant political projects of the last 4 years has been the campaign to make us forget 2020. Forget the mutual aid, forget the federal eviction moratorium, forget the expanded unemployment benefits, forget the free childcare, forget the brief glimpse we had of a government responding to people's needs instead of corporate profits. Forget the spontaneous uprisings. Forget the decentralized care networks. Forget the sense that ordinary people were capable of extraordinary coordination, compassion, and solidarity. This revisionist erasure is essential to ushering in fascism.
This whole video is revisionist erasure. What are you talking about?
Because if people remembered what was possible, they might demand it again. Instead, we've been fed a steady diet of manufactured moral panic controversies.
From who? This is a conservative about litter boxes in schools.
False normalcy.
Okay, I don't even know what this is in reference to.
And an intentional abandonment of public health and labor protections.
But she won't say from who. Dude, this video is so afraid to criticize Trump. It is fucking kids clubs on Trump. This is ridiculous. This is fucking ridiculous. Holy fuck. She's like Jared Fogeling Donald Trump right now. This is insane.
The goal was never just to end pandemic safety measures. It was to obliterate the idea that a different kind of society had ever been glimpsed. But not everyone forgot, and that's part of why we're seeing the language of frustration grow sharper, darker, and harder to police. These memes are vague and ironic, but the emotion behind them is grief mixed with clarity. People see that the institutions meant to protect us won't, and the politicians meant to represent us don't. I see these memes as collective outrage begging for structure. This brings us to the ultimate challenge. How do we transform this bubbling outrage into systems that can survive and resist the slow collapse that we're all living through? This is not something we can vote our way out of. Both political parties have shown their willingness to align with fascism, ignore genocide, and abandon the disabled to mass death. No amount of messaging or getting out the vote will realign a system that views basic survival as a partisan issue. Instead, we have to rebuild what was briefly visible in 2020: community care, mutual aid, and horizontal.
What?
We have to rebuild what was briefly visible in 2020.
In 2020?
Community care.
Dude, these things were done by the Biden organization. Oh my God. And these mutual aid things happened because of states, not because of fucking Donald Trump.
Mutual aid and horizontally organized support.
Union County announces COVID-19 emergency drive-ups. Okay, what are you saying? She's blaming COVID on Biden. This is fucking insane.
Systems that bypass state structures and center vulnerable people. And while organizing things like a food drive or Venmoing a friend for groceries is really, really great, what we need most is to design durable, long-term frameworks for collective survival. This means infrastructure, supply chains, legal defense networks, tenant unions, recentering public health. And it means doing all of this while also being honest about the scale of collapse that we're facing. To do any of this, we have to undo the propaganda that told us that individualism is the rational response to state collapse.
And who says that? Which party is about individualism? Why don't you explain that to me, you fucking idiot?
This means undoing years of propaganda claiming things like masking is a personal choice and not
well, it is now.
Not collective care, that solidarity is weakness, or that we need to sacrifice vulnerable groups so the rest of us can live in normalcy.
And who are the ones advocating for this?
This means refusing to normalize mass death, whether it's here or abroad.
Oh my God, dude. It's fucking conservative. She's a coward. Holy fuck.
And it means refusing to throw trans and other vulnerable people under the bus just because a politician told you that that's the price of winning. We're running out of time to do this stuff.
Who is this video for?
If we don't want to wake up in a fully authoritarian state, we have to stop waiting for top-down reform. If we let these memes and moments pass by without
So what do you think people should do? I'm very confused.
Building on them, I think we're going to end up in a really bleak place. We're going to witness what usually happens when authoritarianism and oligarchs take power. Most people will accept a slow decline. They'll retreat further into individualism and focus on caring for their immediate family over others and exit the political arena.
Why do you think they're doing that? Do you think it has anything to do with the fact that it's very difficult to live right now financially? What do you think that the reason that this is happening is?
Entirely. Authoritarianism rarely takes control through force. It's usually just through resignation. But these memes show how many people do still care. They prove that there is a...
Do you think that the memes show people care? The memes about killing Donald Trump show people care? Good job, Taylor.
Desire for change, even if it hasn't yet found form. And as we build the structure and strategy, we need to recognize that the most subversive thing we can do right now is protect each other, because obviously no one in power will. Someone does need to do it. Not the thing that the meme implies, but the thing that no one wants to admit is necessary.
What?
Building something new outside the system with each other.
God, you're so fucking stupid. Okay.
Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think.
There's no solution here. This is just like a weird, like pathetic fear mongering. So we need to do a thing. We need to do some stuff.
Link in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to my tech and online culture newsletter, usermag.co. That's usermag.co, where I write about all of these things and more. Also, my best-selling book, Extremely Online, is finally out on paperback. It has a brand new cover. I talk about a lot of stuff like this in the book, and politics and the internet, all of this. So pick up a copy wherever books are sold. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you next time.
Okay. That was
all across.
That was terrible. That was horrible. That's all I have to say.